How's dating different now than it was before I contracted HIV? Not being so free with yourself anymore. Um, kind of step back a little bit, you know, wondering if you should tell this person or that person. I ended up married, though, to a man that was negative, that didn't have an issue with me being diagnosed because when I met him, he was delivering food to AIDS patients.
Yeah, so dating in itself is already really complicated, right, to navigate for anyone with a positive or negative status or whatnot. And what's helped me is that I'm able to, be open about my status. I know not everyone can do that because of safety. There's no perfect way to date while positive. Everyone does it differently. When I did want to disclose to a partner who I really liked, who I ended up dating for a few years, a mutual friend of ours disclosed to him before I was able to disclose. And that was really hard. It was my first time like experiencing that. And so we talked like right after that happened, and he was completely fine about it. He actually like said that his grandfather was living with HIV, and they don't talk about it in their family, but he's had some kind of involvement around it, right?
I think if I was born negative, I think I would be honestly a part of the sexual revolution. Like through puberty, just kind of like avoided it the best way I could, right? Because it wasn't like don't have sex. Like I knew that if I dated and I kissed, it could lead to other stuff. And so the responsibility I took on was that I have to make sure that nothing else happens, right? And all the responsibility of a 17-year-old boy or girl, whatever I chose to do and identify as queer, was taken away. And it was all on me. So I didn't do it for the longest time. And I only became sexually active when I was 25, and I'm 26.
I always thought that my HIV status would be the most complicated thing to disclose to intimate partners. As a woman of trans experience, I think that was more so the issue with folks. Dating was interesting. Finding out my HIV status and getting into care was one of those things that empowered me to look differently at relationships. So I would definitely say that my relationships before were a lot less meaningful and eventful.
I have a set of principles for myself and a set of principles I look for in a partner. I would like to meet someone like I can actually be friends with. And actually, because before I would just be sleeping with people and just be sleeping with him and that, just because I would just be following my impulses. And impulses are great, but my impulses went left and right, and wherever I was, there I go. Now I will use a little bit more wisdom. So I guess it's better now than never.
We had been like 6 months into a relationship, and I was like, well, as someone living with HIV, and he was like, what? And I remember like spiraling and like really thinking that this really great relationship that I had been in for the last 6 months could possibly be over because he didn't understand this really important part of my life. And I was like, oh my God, I thought you knew I had HIV. And he was like, no. We hadn't been intimate at this point, and I think that was, for me, I think that was the saving grace for the relationship. He's like, it's fine. I'm like, no, what do you mean it's fine? He's like, I mean, I don't care. Like, and so that's when we started to have the deeper conversation about how like HIV affected his life before he knew my status. It's like a really intense 15-minute conversation, and I think for me that was the moment where I realized that this was the person that I'm supposed to spend the rest of my life with. And it just really helped me like trust him with a lot of like the baggage that I've been carrying, not just as a person with HIV, but also as a woman of trans experience.
I live with this deep visceral idea that I'm going to be automatically rejected. Because of that fear, I've learned that, I put these certain expectations on people to expect rejection, and that's not fair to them, but it's also not fair to myself. But I think the incidents that didn't go well was like I disclosed right before, well, we were in the midst of having sex. And then that partner kind of, retracted immediately and was like, whoa, and treated me differently. And it hurt. It really did. And I had to do some self-work over that. But I feel like I have to be honest, because if this might go anywhere, I have to be honest.
I haven't had a bad issue, a bad issue telling someone I was diagnosed with HIV in the 21 years that I've been living with HIV. Not one person. They've all went well. But now that I'm older and I was divorced, and I was like, I have to do this all over again? I remember just one time, though, that I told a gentleman, we were dating, but we were just going to the movies, and then at lunch, he would call, and we'd meet each other at the restaurant, and we'd eat. And I said, I have to tell this man I'm diagnosed with HIV. It took me like a couple of weeks. But I ended up telling him, and he cried. He cried because his sister had died from AIDS. We didn't go any further with the relationship. But that was okay. We stayed friends, and we emailed each other after he moved away. But that was the only, I don't even think it was a bad experience, though. So that was the only one where someone says, no, I can't do this.
I was educated at the age of 7. That's when I was told about my diagnosis. And I never had any weird reactions when I was a kid. But when you get older, it gets a little bit more complicated. They didn't have any language around it or any education. It was like, they ultimately thought it was like, oh my God, I've been exposed to like a death sentence and all these other things, which we know that's not true. But yeah, I've been in like scary situations where people threatened taking me to court. That's happened. Nowadays, I'm open about my status, which is great, because I think it helps eliminates any of those worries. And so that's been helpful for me, is that it's like written everywhere. I've had a lot more positives than negatives.
For me, because I'm so already out on my status, it was like we Instagrammed it, right? I was like, oh, I went my boo, like, so like there's a face. In the back of my mind, it's fun. I'm a millennial. I'm utilizing that, but I'm also acknowledging legally that if he ever came out and was upset and went to Broward Sheriff's Office in Florida, I'm covering myself. That's how I work. The like quiet, intimate thing doesn't seem to really work, and if that's something some people like, I don't. Then I think that's where the contract would come in. What can I do to make it as fun, as sexy, as sultry as I can, by also keeping myself safe, to get myself out of the criminalization system, as a black girl in the South. It's my attempt to show that, I'm trying to disclose. I am disclosing for sure. And this person knows for sure, and they know what they're getting themselves into in the event, it blows out.
Wow. Undetectable, untransmittable. It's beautiful. Goodness, it's beautiful, because just knowing that you can date and be in a relationship and don't have to worry about transmitting HIV to anybody, it's beautiful.
I'm super excited about U equals U. It's like just adding another tool to the toolbox, right? That if someone can achieve an undetectable viral load, there's no risk of transmission. That's huge. And a lot of people are not aware of that. And so we have to do our part in, educating the public about it.
I've always been undetectable, so that was never like a thing that I struggled with. But I think it's really important that people living with HIV are really taking the charge and making sure that people have all the correct information about the virus and the way in which it's transmitted.
I literally began having sex in the beginning when U equals U was finally getting accepted. I mean, it's hashtag undetectable pussy or undetectable hole or undetectable penis, right? And it's like a hashtag, and I write it on all of my social media hangers, right? And people are like, why'd you make that? It's like, it's just a way to spice it up. So for me, for safe sex is really knowledge. It's not so much condoms only and lubricant. It's like adding that into my toolbox of the responsibility of safe sex, quote unquote, goes for both parties. Like, we physically talked about our boundaries, consent, stuff that we were okay and not okay with. And it really helped me to remind myself that it takes two to tango, right?
Finding out my HIV status like really helped hone into like those things, like what do I want in like life and like relationships, and it just helped me like focus.
Like, I had no idea like who to ask about this. It was only when I reached out and went to support groups, then I got a range of answers. I also had to learn how to think of myself in a different way. I had to really work on my self-esteem first, and I continue to do that every day.
You don't have to beg. You don't have to, like, I guess, like, claw at a person and just to get them to see what you would. Don't do it. Educate once, give them the facts once. Give them time to think and process a little bit if they need it. But, like, after, like, I don't know, like 30 minutes, I guess, or whatever it is, keep it moving.
I just see a lot of people who are not really putting themselves first and taking care of themselves, and like, trying to like be in these really, really intense relationships. Dating is complicated regardless to whether we're living with HIV or not. And I think it's really up to us to really do the work that we need to do internally to make sure that like we're in a healthy space to date.
I think it's my attitude. To be honest with you, I really think it's my attitude. I really think that's why I haven't had any negative rejection. I really feel that's why. And even if I did, it wouldn't bother me anyway.
I've always heard people say that is when they feel better about themselves as someone's living with HIV, it almost like shines, it is able to like spread to other people. And so if we, see that positive reflection, other people will see that positive reflection as well.